Hello, and welcome to the Be Formless, Flow Driven CEO podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, and business. And I am today welcoming to the show, all the way from Delhi, India, Smiti Bhatt Deorah. Welcome to the show, Smitty.
Thanks, V. Thank you for having me on the show.
No, thank you. I've got to stop saying all the way, but you know what's so funny? Because Australia is so far away from everything. I just keep thinking about it as all the way because it's so far away from me.
Yeah, well, I keep traveling, so I spend half my time in the US, some part of it in the Philippines, and some of it in India. So for me, everything is all the way. So it's completely okay.
Yeah, I know. It's just those classic terms you always use, right? But you are the co-founder and COO, Chief Operating Officer of AI, and you started the company as a co-founder back in 2016. So hitting your 10-year stride. Big congratulations to you, especially as
Thank you.
a woman in startup and scaling a business. And essentially, AI is an AI-powered employee experience platform that unifies recognition and rewards, flexible benefits, wellness surveys, and communities in one place. You are a UCLA computer science alumni and former Microsoft engineer, and you now scale product led, relationship driven programs that strengthen the culture and retention. But you're also a member of Forbes HR Council, and most recently, the business AI introduced ADVA 2.0. You can explain what that is to us all, which is an agentic AI that makes recognition and wellness actions faster and more personal for managers and teams. The bit I loved most and doing my research on you was your response to my question when booking in for the show, and what's that unique experience when it comes to life, leadership, and or business, or an insight. And he said, life, relationship building goes a long way, both personally and professionally, for happy outcomes. Leadership, great leaders serve, not rule. Loyalty and fear are inversely proportional. And business, reverse engineer outcome to get the results you want in business partnerships. I love the way you gave me an answer for life, for leadership, and business, because they're all so interconnected. I'd love your thoughts on that. That for me they are, and you must see that time and time again, especially working in the space you're in when it comes to employee experience. Tell us a bit about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, me and my co-founder Saurav, we were both working with Microsoft in the US, and ever since we met at UCLA, we always wanted to start something of our own. So we kind of were looking for different ideas, and I remember we used to maintain this like Google sheet of ideas of which ones we could build. And we started doing that when we were in UCLA. And by the time we started off our careers and we decided to start AI, this was probably the 109th idea in the list. It was like a really long list of ideas we used to have. So for us, like starting a venture is not something we just came up overnight. Like this is something we
No.
wanted to do since a while and we were planning for it. But the question was, which venture do you want to start? Because there are so many problems in the world which are unsolved, and you could look at solving any of them. So initially, ironically, our first idea to start up was actually in the travel domain. It was not in HR tech. And we almost finalized that idea. We built a prototype, we had a website ready and everything all ready to go live. And then we just decided to change it up because, well, me and Saurabh, when we were working with Microsoft, we used to get a lot of benefits as employees ourselves. And there was a third party company which used to provide this digital platform for managing all corporate benefits. And we did not know that. So when we had friends coming from India, from Middle East and other places, we realized that Microsoft only has these offers or benefits for US and Europe, but they don't have it for the rest of the world yet because there aren't companies doing the same thing what they're doing for US and Europe. And that was, well, at that point, we thought this was like a much better idea to start because we have been users ourselves, so we know what customer experience should be. So we ditched the travel idea and then we moved into HR tech. We spoke to like a bunch of HRs in a lot of companies, like even in Microsoft, we spoke to a few in Sony and so more. And then we finalized this idea and then we finally took the plunge and started this. So even though we both do not come from an HR background, of course, after 10 years, I can say I'm partially an HR myself. But back then,
Yeah.
I did not know anything about human resources. But we knew how to build a product. We knew how to, we've been experienced it as customers ourselves. So we thought, hey, this is a good probably thing to start up with. And I'm so happy we didn't do the travel idea because I don't know, COVID might have killed us. So I'm just so glad we decided to go this path instead of
Yeah,
that. But yeah, that's the original
totally.
story of Managed Club.
It's a great story, isn't it? In terms of like you guys like were just had a list of ideas, like and just what problem you solve in the world. Like
Yeah,
had you
and I,
always
I
had an
recommend
entrepreneur?
that. Yeah, and I
Yeah, you go.
recommend that to anyone want to start a venture as well. That you should not just jump into it without thinking. It needs to be a really thought through process. Like understand the market, see whether this is going to be a large idea or not, whether this has scope to be a $1 billion company someday. You should know all of that before you jump into it. A lot of people start companies because they think it's a cool idea and then they end up like maybe it's a TAM issue or whatever, and then maybe a year later they end up dropping it. So it saves a lot of time. I'm not saying every idea will work out because 90% of startups are designed to fail, but you could reduce your chances of failure by doing that process.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I also kind of go, sometimes you don't know. Like I started my business a couple of years ago and it's not shaping the way I thought it would shape. It's shaping very differently to what I had originally planned, you know. And so I think there's got to be that ability to have the plan and know what your North Star is or your purpose, etc. But the ability to have the flex, the adaptability to go with what is resonating and do you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
like coming to
absolutely.
shaping and reshaping. Like that did that happen in your business?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So that's a different thought process altogether. So first it was about starting, like what is that domain you want to start in? And whenever you start in a specific domain, most of the times you realize what you thought was just like the tip of the iceberg than what you could actually build. And that's what happened with us. So we started off as an employee perks platform. So we used to provide discounts to employees in different organizations because that's what we experienced as employees ourselves. But when we actually got into HR tech, we realized that this is the whole iceberg and what we're doing is not even the tip, right? So we went through a series of pivots. We kept evolving in the past decade or so. Back in 2019, we moved into rewards recognition, budget management platform, and it was not by chance. It was just that the more we'd talk to customers, the more problems we'd know, and we'd keep building towards it, eventually creating a platform which is not just like a perks platform, but like an end to end employee benefits platform. It does rewards, recognition, surveys, mood meters. It has well being aspects on it now. So you could run all your flexible benefits. That is not what we envisioned when we started. It was like a really simple,
Okay.
small idea. And it's changed completely into something completely different now, and something it's not something which just pivoted overnight. It has been a series of trials and errors, so many pivots we did during the past decade. I don't know how many concepts of features or products we would have launched and shut off, and finally we found that stable platform or product which you'd want to actually give to the customers. So I completely agree to you. Pivoting is an essential part of a founder's journey. Like if you don't pivot, you will die. So you need to know what is the right time to pivot and really make this
Yeah.
big, really make this into a success.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about recognition and rewards and these flexible benefits? I mean, the world has changed significantly in like the last 10 years that you've been in business. What are you seeing as the biggest conversation or themes that are coming up for recognition and rewards and with the companies you're working with? Because the younger generations, they want more in terms of more value, more purpose from their businesses. And once upon a time, rewards and recognition, it was probably vastly different 10 years ago, let alone 3 years ago to now. What are you seeing as the big, I guess, opportunities, but also the biggest challenges when it comes to recognition and rewards with employees at the moment?
Yeah, so I think a few things changed in the past 10 years, right? One, I think from a generational standpoint, people's expectations from work completely changed. So 10 years ago, if you talk to like any corporate employee, what do you want from your job? It's more around, okay, I'm getting a good salary, I'm getting paid on time, and I'm able to make my ends meet, hence I am in a good company and the company takes care of me, maybe gives me some benefits, and that's like an additional bonus. It is not the decision factor for me to join an organization. And I think in the past couple of decades, actually, the mentality has completely shifted because the generations have changed. And now we have, all these Gen Zs who really want more out of life. They want more out of work as well. So for them, it's all about, what is my purpose? Like, why am I here? What is the objective of me working in this organization? It's not just to earn or do a 9 to 5 job anymore. So for them, all of these things around credit or recognition or feeling that I matter or there's a purpose for me working in this company, those things become important, which was not there probably 10 years ago. And which is also why when you see like these millennial managers and you see these Gen Z employees, they don't resonate with each other, because the millennials, they're unable to understand what these guys want, and the Gen Zs are unable to understand why the millennials can't understand the basic ideology of purpose. So I think that has completely changed in the past decade because of these employees now wanting more than just a paycheck. They need to feel recognized. They need to feel that they matter in the company, and hence recognition as a feature or as a program has completely changed from being a nice to have to a must have in organizations. That's one thing which has changed. The second thing which has changed, I think, is generally the amount of options you have when you're, say, working, right? Post COVID, a lot of work became global. So now you can actually find work in other countries and other geographies. It's remote, so you can sit anywhere, work anywhere. So the number of opportunities you have also changes. And because of the hybrid work setup, people are not meeting in offices anymore. They're not doing water cooler
Yeah.
conversations. They're feeling more lonely as compared to before. Hence, the feeling of belongingness is also going away. So, at some point, for you, changing a role is easier because now you don't have a community you're leaving, right? So it's all about going from one bland workplace to another bland workplace. So this is also a really good retention tool, because when you have a program which inculcates belongingness, which inculcates community, which makes people appreciate each other, it's also a barrier for people leaving their jobs, because they end up thinking, okay, I'm getting paid a little more here, but I will get to that
Yeah.
pay anyway in the next couple of years in my company. But the way I'm treated here might not be the same way I would be treated elsewhere. And that's also why all these engagement programs for organizations have become more.
It's really interesting you're talking about this and the way you're explaining it. It for me, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but purpose is at the heart of, I guess, what you just said from an employee experience, right? But what you're talking about here is bringing and interconnecting recognition and rewards, the flexible benefits, the wellness surveys, and the communities all in one.
Yes.
Because in the past, in the businesses I've been in the past, the rewards and recognition team over here, you had HR over here, you had the people and culture team here. And so, not one, as much as they were coming across as if they were talking to each other, for me, if you were an employee, it was all quite dispersed, or you had your social team together. But what you're talking about is, and by the sounds of things, Advantage Club AI is doing is basically pulling into like one interconnected model, if you like, so that me as an employee, it stops me from wanting to leave the company. Is that right? Is that what you're doing when you're going into businesses? You're looking at all their disconnections and how you can bring it all together, and then you're doing it through AI powered employee, that through the platform you've created?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're all peas in one pod, right? I mean, when
Yeah,
you so so let's think of it from an HR perspective and from an employee perspective. Now, let's when you think of it from an HR perspective, sure, there's a different team running recognition, there's a different team running well-being, there's a
yeah,
different team running communities, but from an employee perspective, it is all the same thing, right? I perceive it as an additional benefit given to me by my organization. I don't care who's running it in the company. For me, it's all about, okay, what else am I getting beyond my salary in this organization? And how is the organization making me feel? And that is just a single answer. It is not that, okay, hey, I like the reward system, but I don't like the communities. No, it's just that, do I feel I'm being appreciated or not? Do I feel I belong here or not? And all of these initiatives which HRs run internally through different teams actually have a cumulative effect on the employee. So when an employee thinks of it as a one single entity, why should an organization treat it differently, right? I mean, companies should think of it as a cumulative effort to drive the right engagement for employees. Another problem which comes in with these distributed programs is nobody uses them. So, as an employee, I have
yeah.
20 apps and then I'm
True.
confused. Which app do I go to? Like, oh, okay, if I need perks, I have to sign up here. But if I need to use my reward points, I have to sign up there. Oh, but my communities is on Teams. Oh, okay, so I gotta go to Teams. Oh, we also have a Slack channel. Okay, so maybe there's a separate channel, and it's really confusing for the employee. So bringing a unified approach together where all of these apps, I'm not saying don't launch 5 apps, I'm just saying create a structure in which they can talk to each other and employees can
Yeah,
hop on, hop off platforms without even realizing it. Like if I have a community on Teams and I have a recognition program, my community should be visible there as well. Why do I need to sign up in 5 places? I will never do that. And hence, adoption takes a backseat, and end of the year the leadership comes in and says, hey, none of these are working. They're not working because it's too confusing for the employees. So I think which is why,
yeah.
like, for us we treat it as one single entity.
I love it. Tell me a little bit. This is going to be a bit of a controversial question, right? But it's not loaded in any way, shape, or form. And if you don't want to answer, it's totally fine. But the term human resources, I've just been thinking about it, and I told you it would be a free flowing conversation, and that's why I don't script, because depending on what you're talking about, my questions come to me intuitively. But you think about human resources, it's been around forever and a day, that department. And yet you've got these, let's call it agentic AIs. You've also got, the AI in general. You're also talking about, employee experiences. Is HR as we know it, is it a dying breed? And I mean, I'm trying to understand based on what you're talking about here, and you've talked around this, the distribution platforms, and I'm also questioning, hang on, so we've got this AI platform, we've got agentic AI, and then we've got the role of humans and dialing up human potential, etc. Like, what's your view? Does it need to be called something else? Is it being reshaped? And that's why, we're hearing more around the employee experience, etc., versus the old term of HR. Like, yeah, can you elaborate a bit on that for us, please? Am I making sense with what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think what HR, and let me talk about the evolution of HR, right? So I think it starts all the way from the Industrial Revolution when, eons ago, we used to have maybe no industries, no currency. We used to have a barter system where, hey, I have 10 sheep, you have 10 goats, and maybe we can like exchange them for each other. And
Yeah,
that's how the world used to work. And then when the evolution of currency actually happened, that is when the concept of work began. That you spend your time and energy doing something for most of your day and you get paid for it, which helps you run your home, right? And that was the whole evolution of HR because when you had people working for you, you started looking at industrial safety for workers. You started looking at, say, basic benefits like insurance, etc. And that's how HR was created, because the ideology was that to run a business, you have these set of resources, and those human resources need to be taken care of for things beyond just pay, to ensure that at least they're safe and they're having wellness benefits enough at work in case they fall sick. That with time evolved into completely different thing today, right? So today, insurance, safety, all of these are like status quo. Everyone has it. It's not like you're creating a difference in the world by having these additional things which other companies might not have. So I don't think humans are looked at as just resources anymore, right? I mean, they're not
Yeah,
really.
that's what I was finding that too,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And I mean, it is obvious that you need humans to run an organization today. So, yeah, I kind of partially agree with
Yeah.
you when you say that the definition is completely different now. And especially now with AI, we might have some AI resources going ahead in the future, and it could be
Yeah.
completely different world at work tomorrow. Like, we're looking at integrating humans with AI. We're looking at, say, half of your work can be done by, say, a GPT equivalent, or maybe most of your work can be done by a GPT equivalent. I think the definition of work itself generally will change with time. And I don't think HR is going to be like a compliance or it's not a policy or a compensation function anymore. I think it's more around, I don't think humans as resources. I think it's humans in execution is what is going on today. If I were to think of a better word,
Yeah,
it's
totally.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
not
no,
really
it feels
humans
like
as
it's ripe
resources.
for being created. It feels like a new term is ripe for being created. I love that you're calling it human art resources. It just feels like so, it just feels so off for me. And, maybe it is being, I just think it's ready to be reinvented and reshaped. I want to talk a little bit about you as a female, as a co-founder. I think you said your other partner is he a male or did you say
Yeah,
female?
he's male. So
Yeah.
we started this, I think, when we were looking at, so me and Sarah, we met at UCLA, and one of the things we kind of really resonated on was our mutual thirst for building something together. And we used to like work on all projects together. It was so funny, like, when we started dating, a lot of our friends, they started saying that you're not you're not dating because you're working. I mean, you're not working on projects together because you're dating. You're actually dating because you're working on projects together. So we've always had that. Our initial relationship was always work related. So we work really well with
So
each
you're
other.
partners. You're not just work business partners, you're actual partners.
We're actually partners. So we
Oh,
we got
sorry, I
married.
missed that.
Yeah, we eventually got married, and we run it like one single
Oh, I just
unit
lost
now.
you.
But yeah, I mean, we've always had that initial work relationship, and that's how we're able to work together very well. So yeah, that's.
No, I love that. Tell me then, Spinny, have you found it challenging as a woman in business, as a co-founder, like in the 10-year period, and do you see it in businesses? Like, what do you see as the biggest challenges as a woman who is taking on the world with a global business? Like, what do you come up against? And I guess for me, do you ever doubt yourself? Like, I don't know the relationship between you and your husband slash business partner, but like sometimes I think that we we don't go for it as much because there's just this, like, I guess, feeling of, oh, can I do it? Or, have I got what it takes? Or, there's all this stress. And whereas sometimes, males, they just go, they just go for it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, have you had any times in your career, in building the business where you've held back and then you've gone, actually, do you know what I mean? Like, it has, like, what, have you ever had those imposter syndrome thoughts?
Got it. So yeah, I mean, the past decade, a lot has evolved. I don't think there's a lot of bias. Like, there's a general unconscious bias when you're working with, like, say, a woman founder versus a male founder, right? A lot of those biases I feel in the past decade have been fixed society wise, where people are more open to work with women founders. And when you think of like women led businesses like a decade ago, they used to be very traditional businesses. Like you wouldn't find a lot of really technology focused businesses being built by women probably a decade ago, which is not true anymore. Few of the world's largest AI firms are being head by women today. But yeah, I think when we were starting off in the initial days, you would end up hearing those things like, "Oh, it's so amazing that as a woman, you've founded a technology company." And I'm a techie. I
Yeah.
mean, I know how to code. If I was a bad coder, Microsoft would not have hired me. It's more like you used to get those biases initially where people would naturally probably think of my partner as the technology person and me as the business person, even though we kind of, well, we had divided it that way. But if you need a technology, maybe suggestion or an upgrade or any information around that, people would not naturally come to me because they would end up thinking that he knows his stuff better. So I think
Yeah.
that with time has evolved. But I remember in those early days, even with employees, like people would go with technology problems to him. And if he was not there, then it was more like, who do we go to? So one of the things I learned over time is that you cannot change the world around you. You cannot change people's mentalities, which are ingrained in them over years of maybe thinking of something else, looking at their environment. And you can't change that unconscious bias, but you can maybe at least change your perception about them. Like they might
Yeah.
still end up thinking that, okay, 90% of the women do not know technology, but 10% do, and you can land among that 10%. But unlike a male founder, a woman founder has to actually prove it. So for me,
That's that's my
one thing which I had to prove, and I'm okay with that if people don't take that naturally. I'm completely okay proving that because I can't change people's mentalities about the world, but I can change their mentality about me. So I remember like my co-founder once was, and this was like a decade ago, really, really long back. My co-founder was traveling, and there was like an architectural change because of which some code got deployed and everything broke. And it was like my co-founder was in flight, so he could not be contacted for the next 3 4 hours. And there was a life side issue, and there was mayhem. Like the tech team was like, what do we do? And I actually got stepped in and I fixed it for them. And that was the day their thought process, their mentality about me changed. So since then, I started noticing that, okay, they started coming to me for problems. They started asking me for suggestions, product related, technology related. It's really, I mean, if I was a guy, they would have come to me naturally, but it took a crisis for them to actually take my leadership normally. And not just in technology, even in business, right? Like I run sales, sales completely comes under me. But I think 8 9 years ago, every time I would hire somebody in my sales team, I would notice they would naturally go to Saurabh because they just felt he's better. And even though they haven't worked with me. So one of the things I started doing is I made it mandatory for everyone who joins to attend one meeting with me. And I ensure that they see me in action, they see me talking to customers, and that one meeting would completely change that perception. So I had to do those things to eventually reinstate my authority that I'm not just a founder because I'm Saurabh's wife or whatever, but I am a founder because I'm really good, and this comes under my domain, which means I'm completely capable of making decisions in
yeah.
that. With time, that has changed. Of course, now I don't have to do that anymore. Maybe once or twice still a year, I still have to do it because there might be some people who still have the unconscious bias, who still feel that men are
Yeah.
better than women and everything. And I'm completely okay proving it. But the number of times I have to do it now is like literally maybe 1% compared to what I had to do it maybe a
Yeah.
decade.
I mean, I think for me, I think it's unfortunate we have to keep proving it,
Yeah.
right? But I think
Yeah.
that, the proof is in the pudding. And I think as, more women, entrepreneurs, kind of are rising, it's just being having that we shouldn't have to, but I think it's about what you did is you wouldn't take no for an answer. You were like, you made things mandatory. You made sure that were, I guess, being clear on who you were and what you were capable of. And I think that comes with a lot of courage and the ability to be like, no, I am going to, this is who I am and this is how I do it. And I love that because I think we
And
need
you know,
see more women.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you, B, but it's not something which is because it's not a generational thing. Like, I do not look at men and women differently. I do not. When I hire people, I do not think that, okay, we
You
should
don't.
hire a guy because we're hiring for a technology role, or we should hire a girl because we're hiring for a sales role. We don't look at it that way. It's really, it's person to person. It's not like the whole community thinks that way.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
I don't differentiate between people. It's not because I'm a woman. I've seen a lot of women do that. And I've seen a lot of men who do not differentiate between genders. So it's really who you are, where you've come from, what you've seen as experiences, your career, your professional life.
Yeah, it's a good conversation. We could go off on a complete and utter rabbit hole. Couple of final questions for you. Your business partner, you came back to me with your responses in life around life, leadership, and business, and we pretty much, I think we've spoken a lot about those across the whole conversation we've been having. How do you and your husband switch off? Because you are coders, your background is engineering, you're a tech based company. You both work together, you co-founders, you live together, you're partners. How do you two, do you have some form of magic that you use? I hear about couples that, they have their date nights or they have different things, but there's two things going on for me: that you're married, you worked, your co-founders, business partners, but there's also that you have an AI based company. You switch off, and then how do you find time together, but then also how do you find time for yourselves individually as well? No. Yeah. There's no such thing as work-life balance. Yes. No, exactly. Agree, and it's good that you're calling all these, and it really does come circles right back to the employee experience. It's almost like the founder experience. There's another idea for you, Smitty, in terms of like another, you may already be doing it, but the Advantage Club.ai for the founder experience and how they're rewarding and recognizing themselves, what flexible benefits they're giving themselves, the community they're joining in the wellness, because it is all everything that you're doing for our employee experience. We need that founder experience as well, and looking after ourselves, don't you think? Like, I think there's something really in that, in terms of, and like even for me, I'm thinking about my day. I've had a really big day today, and it's what 10 to 7 now, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, I'll go cook dinner, get my little puppy his dinner and stuff like that, take him for play, and then I'm like, I could go back online, but I just feel tired tonight, so I think I'm just going to actually not. And I think that's where you have to make those choices, because the work will always be there. And yes, you'll be still waking up in the middle of the night, but I think sometimes we have to, power down to power back up again. And so I think that's really important, in yes, so true. 'Cause I've got the front guilt now. I'm like, I should be doing more tonight, but I'm like, I wanna just not. I wanna read a book. Yeah, 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 100%. No. Yeah, I had that reminder last night from my mum, actually. Oh gosh, Smitty, you've given me the yes, the okay to not have the founder guilt tonight, and then I can pick that up back up in the morning when I'm like, "Ah," like, we're always oscillating between surviving and thriving. Final question, what is next for Advantage Club.ai? Like, you are really, trailblazing through, this AI powered employee experience. So what does it look like? What do you think the AI powered employee experience looks like in the next 12 months? Yeah. Yeah. Oh my god. I love it. You're taking on the world, Smitty. You're reshaping what we talked about before. It's not beyond HR. You're reshaping the whole entire experience. I love it. I absolutely give you one piece of advice or words of wisdom you would give any, let's say, a woman founder or co-founder starting a business today. What would be your one piece of advice to them? Everything. So true. One hundred percent. Yeah, I agree. So good. Yeah. No, I love it, and it's been a good call out. It's for women and men, but also your energy. Bring the energy. If like if you're not feeling the energy, look at have a question like comes back to that founder guilt and that exhaustion piece. You have to feel into the energy. You have to feel like yeah, I love it. Thank you so much, Smitty. How do we find out more about Advantage Club? AI. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's your website details, but also how do we find out more about you? Wow. Amazing. Smitty, thank you so much for your time. You've certainly brought the energy for a Tuesday. I've absolutely loved talking to you, and I can't wait to see where you and Advantage Club.ai, take it to the next level. And yeah, who knows? You might reshape or rename the resources bit of human. Totally. So do I. I agree. Maybe, yeah. Thank you. Well, thank you, Smitty. Enjoy your day and thank you for your time.